In this video, I will be discussing about interfaces and I will answer the most significant question regarding the interfaces like what exactly is interface, why should we use interface, when we should use interface and how can interface be implemented effectively. So before we talk about what is interface, let's try to understand why we need interface and what is the need of interface. So before we talk about interface, we should get the some context of inheritance. So what is inheritance? So basically inheritance means getting some property and behavior from the parent class or superclass to the child class or subclass. We are having the inheritance of multiple types. One is single inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hierarchical inheritance, hybrid inheritance, and the most important thing why we discuss about inheritance, that is multiple inheritance. So basically a multiple inheritance in Java is not supported. Why? Because in multiple inheritance a subclass extend more than one superclass, and multiple inheritance is not achievable in Java, but by using the interface, we can achieve the multiple inheritance. So hey guys, what's going on everybody? Hope you are doing well. My name is Subham Jain. I'm lead software engineer and I love sharing what I have learned in a clear understandable way. So if you enjoy this video, please consider subscribing so that you don't miss the new interesting video. So let's see what is interface. An interface, we can say a contract between the client and service provider. Okay, so this is the basic general terminology. And if we say in Java, this is a collection of abstract method and define some set of behavior that can be implemented by some classes. Or we can say a interface is a kind of class which contain the functions and some fields. These fields are final, the function are abstract. And we can say that a interface can contain abstract method, constant variable, and from Java 1.8 onwards, we are also having the default method and static methods. And from Java 1.9, we can have the private method as well. So we can say that an interface in Java is a contract that define set of methods that a class must implement if it claim to implement that interface. Okay, so let's understand this concept of interface by a simple story. So once a magician was sitting in a garden with his curious child when they noticed various creatures are moving around them. The child asked the magician why these creatures cannot fly, and in response the magician create an interface, that interface called flyable, with a fly method. The next morning when they return to the garden and the child notice there is a butterfly moving around the flowers, and there is a sparrow flying from one tree to another tree, and a eagle that is flying high in the sky. The child was puzzled and asked the magician why the creature were flying in a different altitude even though they all implemented the same interface and same method. The magician explained that although they were using the same interface and method, they were implementing them according to their individual need. So I hope you got some context that an interface is a contract which defines some method, and many classes are going to implement those methods, and they are going to give some implementation according their individual need. Okay, so let's talk about some fact about the interface. A Java class can implement multiple Java interfaces. That means a class can implement more than one interface, and whatever the class is implementing that interface, that should override all the abstract method declared in the interface. And by default, whatever the method available in interface are public and abstract. Okay, and we can't instantiate the object of interface and interface can extend multiple interfaces, and inside the interface, when we are initializing some variable, these variable must be initialized, otherwise it will throw some error. And then from Java 9 onwards we can have the private method as well. So let's see how to use interfaces. So first of all, to define the interface, we should need to use the keyword interface. Then we need to define some interface name, then use curly bracket, and inside that curly bracket we can define some variable. So by default these variable is going to be public and final, and we can define some method. These methods are basically public and abstract, and we can define some default method from Java 8 onwards, the default method with the declaration body, and we can define a static method. So let's see how interface look like. So here is an example of interface. So this is interface player, this is the keyword, and this is the interface name, and over here we initialize some variable. So this variable is going to be by default public and final, and we define some game name NFS, and some abstract method void move, some default method roll, and some static method which is gonna say hello. So let's get some hands-on experience on interface. So let's create one interface. So we are going to name it player, and we will select the interface, and then we are gonna say that int move is equal to 1, static public final string game name is equal to any game name. Okay, so see, like when I define this string game name with static public final, these keywords are gray out, because by default all the variable inside the interface are static public final, or you can say public static final, any sequence. And now we are going to use so now we are going to create our first interface method, that is void move. And if I'm going to add abstract before it, so you can see that this is also gray out. That means all the method which are defined in the interface without any body are abstract. Okay, so we can have it. And from Java 8 onwards we can have some default method void crawl. See, so if we are not going to define the crawl method body, then it is going to show the error that extension method should have a body. So we can define the body, and we can have some print character is crawling. Okay, and we can have the static method as well, void display, and over here we can say system.out.println my game name is game name. Okay, so we created our first interface player, and let's go, let's see how to implement interface. So let's see how we can implement this player interface. So let's create one more class. That class is warrior class. Okay, so the next question is how to implement the interface that we have created player inside the warrior. So what we are going to say, we will say implements, and then we will give the interface name, that is player. And once we are going to do that, so this implements is a keyword that we are going to use to implement the interface. And once we are going to do that, it is showing some error. Let's see what it is. It says class warrior must be either declared as abstract or implement the abstract method move. Okay, so what does it mean? It means a abstract class also this implements the player interface. If we are going to create the this class as an abstract, then we are not having any error. Okay, so let's implement its method move. Okay, so now we implemented the move method, and then we can say that, so now we can say that system dot out dot println warrior is moving with the speed of. So we have created one variable inside the player, that is move. So let's use this variable over here. So we will say move, and let's try to change its value. So we will say move is equal to 10, and now we are seeing that it is saying some error, that we can't assign a value to a final variable move. So that means it's proved that whatever the variable defined inside the interface are final. Okay, so we have covered whatever the variable defined inside the interface are by default static, public, and final. And if we want to use it, we can use it with the name of the interface as well. So let's see player dot hook. Okay, so what does it mean? Like, by default these are static as well. So we have implemented this abstract method. Okay, now let's see about this crawl method. So by default we have given the body of this crawl method, so no need to implement this inside the warrior class until unless we want to change its functionality. So if we want to, then we can use it public void crawl, and it is saying that now we are going to use the functionality of whatever we have written in the player class. But if we don't want to use it, so we can remove it, and we will say system dot out dot println warrior is crawling. Okay, and let's try to create the object of this warrior class. So let's come to the main class, and we will say warrior is equal to new warrior, and we will say warrior dot move and warrior dot crawl, and let's try to run it. So here we are seeing that warrior is moving with the speed of 1, that what we have written in the move method. And now when we are using warrior is crawling, when we are calling this crawl method, we are having this output. And if we are going to use this player dot uh, super dot crawl method, then see what's gonna happen. So we are having one more line, that is whatever the functionality we have written inside the interface default method, first that is going to be execute, and later on whatever we have written inside our override method, that is going to be executed. Okay, and let's create one more class. So let's create the archer class, and this archer class can also implement the player method. So now we will say system dot out dot println, and we will say archer is moving. So when we are designing a game with this warrior and archer, we can have some specific power to these characters. Like warrior can have different power and archer can have the different power. So let's give these character some power. Okay, so let's create uh, one more interface. Okay, so let's say void height, and here the class we are going to say interface void height, void sneak. Okay, and then let's create one more interface range attacker, and this is going to uh, say void attack. Okay, so when we are discussing about the multiple inheritance, so we are having the problem that we can't have the property of two different entity, and now this warrior is want to have the property of this range attacker interface. So how we can do that? So what we need to do, we just need to add some comma over here, and then we will say range attacker, and then we need to have the functionality of attack, and then we can say that warrior is attacking. Okay, and when we want to give some stealth to this archer, we are going to implement this additional interface. Okay, and we will say archer is height, archer is sneaking. Okay, and now come to this main class, and over here where we created this warrior class, and let's create the archer class object as well, and then we will say warrior dot attack archers dot move archers dot hide archers dot sneak, and let's try to run it. So now you can see the beauty of interface, how we can add some additional functionality to the existing class. Okay, and suppose we want to have some functionality where a character can attack as well as he can hide and sneak. So what we can do, we can create one more interface. It will say range stealth attacker. Okay, and now what we can do, because this stealth functionality is pre-implemented, now we are having these predefined methods, and attacker is also having the predefined methods. So what we can do, now we can extend the functionality of existing stealth interface, and we can also have the functionality of range attacker. Okay, so now whosoever is going to use this range stealth attacker, so now I'm going to give the power to this warrior. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this interface range attacker, and will add the stealth attacker. And now what I need to do, I need to add these two functionality as well. Now we can say that warrior is hide, and we can say that warrior is sneaking. So let's try to run it. Let's add hide warrior dot. So So now we can see that now this particular warrior is having the functionality of this stealth interface as well. Okay, so let's go back to this player interface, and now we will discuss about this default method. So let's see what is the significance need of this default method. Suppose I'm having this player class, okay, this warrior class, and it's implementing the player method, and again this archer is also implementing this player interface, and now I want to give some additional power to this player method, but I don't want that who is implementing this player interface, and they don't need to like be modified. They don't need to be modified. So what I can do, I can give some default method, uh, let's say rock, and I will say system dot out dot println, and we will say vector is rocking. And so these class are not bound to implement that particular method, but if they are willing to, they can easily implement it. So that's the beauty of this default method. And what about this static method that we have created this display? So what we can do, suppose if we want to print it, then we can say that player dot display, and inside this we are saying my game name is any game name, so that if we want to call some function with the interface name directly, we can have the static methods. Okay, so let's talk about the one more feature, that is private method. So previously, like, we have covered the default method, and we have covered the static method, and from Java 11 onwards we can also have the private method. So let's see how we can have the private method. So I'm going to create a private method, private void print message. It will ask one input parameter, and we will say system dot out dot println message. And now what I'm going to do, inside the default method I'm going to call this print message. Okay, and let's try to run it. So when this crawl function is going to be called, it will internally call the private function, that is print message, and it will print the message. So private method inside the interface are those method which cannot be accessible outside the interface. Okay, so with the help of this private method we can hide some code. Okay, so let's try to run it, and we can't call these private method from here, like we have created the print method, so it's not accessible. Okay, and now we can see that the character is crawling is coming from this private method. Okay, so in my previous video of abstraction, Ashish Karan commented that also explain the interface diamond problem. So let's see what is this interface diamond problem. Let's try to understand by an example. So I'm going to create a class A. Okay, another class public, class B, public, class C. Okay, and let's assume these are the abstract class or the normal class, and this class C want the functionality of class A and class B. So we can extend only one class. So let's move this class to another package. So class C is extending class A, and class D is extending class B. And if I will create one more class, class E, and if I am trying to extend the property of class C and class D, I can't do that because Java doesn't allow to extend multiple classes. So this problem known as the diamond problem or deadly diamond problem. The multiple inheritance is not supported in Java. So let's see what's the problem in interface diamond problem. So when we are having this stealth interface and range attacker interface, so let's have one common method over here. So let's say void toggle, and if I'm going to have this same function inside the range attacker, and when I am trying to extend both interface over here, I'm not having any problem over here, because when the implementing class, this implementing class is going to override this method, when I'm going to override this method, I can give my own implementation. So because both interface is having the abstract method, so that's why this problem is not there. If I will say these are the default method, and again the same default method is available in the range attacker, and then when we go to this range stealth attacker interface, so it is showing a error. It is saying that inherited unrelated default for toggle. So what we need to do, either we need to implement it, okay, so either we can say that when this range stealth attacker is going to be called, we will call the default method of stealth interface, or we can say that we are going to call this toggle method of range attacker interface, either one or both, or if we want we can leave it blank, so that whenever the class is going to implement it, they can give its own implementation. Okay, so if I go to the warrior class, I can give my own implementation over here. So we see over here what is the diamond problem in interface and how we can resolve it. For the abstract method, there is no problem. When we are going to have the default method in two interfaces, and any other interface is going to extend those two interface, then we need to give the implementation of the default method. When to use interfaces? So when to use interface and abstract class. So first I will talk about when to use interface. So when you want the some set of behavior that is going to be used by multiple class, when you want consistent and predictable API for your code, when you want the polymorphism and flexibility in your code, then at that time we use interface. What does it mean? So this means when you want a set of common behavior that can be implemented by the different classes, okay, and when we use abstract class, when we want that a template that need to be defined by a group of classes. So if I say in a simple word that interface can be used when we want a particular functionality that is going to be used in a different class, like suppose if I say fly, there is an interface fly available, and the function fly can be used by birds, can be used by aeroplane, or can be used by Superman as well. And here you can see that all the class are different, but when we can use the abstract class, suppose we are having the rectangle, circle and triangle, and there is a class shape which is having common method area, at that time we can use the abstract classes. Okay, and if you are curious about what are the abstract class and how we can use the abstract class, you can check out my previous video, link is in the description. So if you have any question or clarification, please feel free to let me know in the comment section. If I got something wrong, feel free to shout at me. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.